We don't very often have a chance to celebrate this Mass on Sunday. It's 40 days after Christmas. And so we honor this, and partly because it was thought about the time of coming, the Shiach is going to be there, and so a lot of good things happen after 40 days. 40 days in the desert for the Jews, Jesus, 40 days in the desert. So they would have this ceremony. And when I was a child, this was the last day of the Christmas season. It was called all kinds of things. The purification of Mary, the Candlemas, when they would bring candles and have them blessed, etc. So it's been around for quite a long time. So that's why we don't see it very often, just because it's always on this second day of February, and with leap days and things like that. Sometimes it's 8 or 9 years between you actually have it on a Sunday. But that's why we're doing it now, today. It is this particular day. But I want to go back about 800 or 900 years before Christ, and the prophet Ezekiel, I like him. He's got some just great prophecies. In the 10th chapter, there was so much corruption in the temple that the prophet says, I saw the glory of God go from the temple. God left the temple. It was so bad. Now, they kept going ahead, and the prophets would say, well, someone's coming, that's true. But it was just a terrible thing to hear at that time. And now we have this first reading from Malachi. It's the last book of the Old Testament. And so, and he has this beautiful thing, someone's coming. God's going to send someone. And that's referring to John the Baptist. His precursor, the one that's going to really announce the new age. And of course, then we hear, and suddenly he will come to the temple. It's talking about Jesus. He's coming to the temple. And he is presented to God. It's a normal thing for Jewish boys when they're born. 40 days, and here he is. He's there in the temple. The prophecy is fulfilled. God keeps his promises. He always does. And so Joseph and Mary bring Jesus up to be presented to the Lord. Well, I mean, he's God. But, he's going and doing the rituals of Judaism. He wasn't trying to brag or anything like this. And as soon as he was conceived, he is a God. He is God. And he knew that. And Mary had never sinned, so they didn't really have to be purified or anything like that. But to work with the people. Said, yes, we do that. And so that happens. And it's kind of a strange encounter that happens when they're there. Joseph, Mary, and then here comes this guy Simeon. They probably never have heard of him. He just showed up, and all of a sudden, Mary and Joseph, he's holding their baby. And he's saying all these things about him. Now, can you imagine, if any of you parents, if you take your baby to church and somebody walks up to you and takes your baby and hold it and says, "Now I can die." Really? But that's what happened. You know, God does things in ways we would never do. They have that beautiful prayer, the Nunc Dimittis. Now, God, I can die. I've seen the salvation of Israel. I could die now. And thinking, Joseph and Mary going, "What, Mary, what's going on here? What's going on?" Yeah, it was different. And then comes this church lady who's in church all the time in the temple, and starts glorifying and saying, "Oh, there's something great is going to happen here with this child." So, God does these things. And he does things always in small ways that get to be big things. God doesn't start with the biggest. He starts with the small. And I was thinking about a story about this, kind of to illustrate this a little bit. There was a guy who was climbing up a cliff, and he fell, and he started falling down into a big gorge, and he grabbed onto a little branch of a tree, and he started saying, "Help, help, I need help." And this voice comes down and says, "I can help you, but you have to have faith." The guy says, "Oh, I have faith, I have faith." And then the voice came down again. "Let go." The pause. The man said, "Is anybody else up there?" We have to learn, that it's really important to think about, where is God? God is always where you least expect to find him. Always remember that. God always can show up in the strangest places. And I was thinking about, we're talking about Jesus' presentation, but what about if we just turn that just a little bit? And how do we present ourselves to others? Now, in this parish, I'm going to give you an example that I know never happens. It never happens in this parish, okay? I just want you to know that when I go through this, okay? Spouses sometimes really get in arguments. And they sometimes have bad language when they do that. And they get loud. And they call each other names, all those kinds of things. Teenagers and children, now you know where you got it. But how many times, instead of that, what about present the image of God inside of you? We are made in the image and likeness of God. Rather than the harsh words and all those things, maybe I need to work on showing my God's image in me and talk like that. Not easy. No, I know it never. And here's this parish. Everybody does it the right way. Not? Okay. Just be thinking about that. How do we do that? What about it when a teacher calls home and says that Bobby or Betty were telling lies or cheating on a test? How often do we decide to not say, well, I did that. No, I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. How many times, even as children, we know how to try to fudge things. And parents, when that happens, don't be soft on your child. Jesus did not have a soft life. He didn't. His whole purpose of being here is because we're the ones who tell the lies and the recriminations. And what about if your teenager says, I don't want to go to Mass. I don't like Mass. I don't get anything out of it. And you remember my father's reply to that? Remember? What does he say? So? That was that. He said, well, when you're on your own and you don't go to church, that's one thing. But in this house, this is what we do. Jesus went to church all the time. You want to be like Jesus, you go to church because he did. You follow his example. And so, we have to fight for that. We have to fight to get this beautiful image of God within us to come to fruition. It doesn't happen magically. It happens with our presenting ourselves to God. Say, God, help me, help me. And today we're blessed with a group of teens from St. Michael's Church. They're on a kind of a mini pilgrimage going to different churches in the diocese, and that's really nice to see them. And they're getting ready for confirmation. And I would say this about you're getting ready for confirmation. One of the things to think about is when you are going through the ceremony, there are 7 gifts that are given to you by the Holy Spirit. And in Rome, way back when, with Caesar was the king, the soldiers, when they made an oath, they would get a tattoo on their arm, and that they made this great promise to do this. Well, the bishop will ask you to make an oath. The 7 gifts of the Spirit. And God will give them to you. And there will be a mark. Now, you won't see it. You won't see the mark like you would back then. Okay? If you're short, you will not get tall. If you're tall, you will not get short. You won't see it at all. The 7 gifts will be given to you for your heart, your head, and most of all, your soul. And, that's what you want to present to the world. That's what you want to present to God and to those around you. No one can do it for you. Not even God. He'll help you. He'll help you, and he'll give you the tools, the grace to do that. But you have to choose, and you have to put it into action. Nobody else. That's what Jesus did. That's how Jesus lived. And if it's good enough for him, it's good enough for us.